than to be in a room with 3,000 allies who lit up like Christmas trees when we heard President Bill Clinton announce the fundamental creed of our family: we are all in this together. And we are all in this together, and that's why we are going to elect all the great Democrats we've heard from today, and it is why we are going to elect a president who knows that America only has 1 year, and that's former President Barack Obama. This morning I heard or read something that I thought set the stage of our mutual endeavor here today. Trudy and I were having coffee, and I saw a post on my Facebook by a friend, and it said this is not just an election, this is a contest for the heart and soul of Washington State. I am a 5th generation son of the state of Washington. I am rooted in the innovative past, and I know this: the business of Washington State is the future, and we're going to do it. That's why I know I'm going to be in the state of Washington. Here's why I believe this. I'm rooted here. My ancestors mined for gold in the Republic. They were commercial fishermen in the San Juans. They helped to revegetate the alpine meadows on the slopes of Mountaineer National Park. I'm rooted in the innovative story of the state of Washington. I grew up mostly in White Center. My dad was a biology teacher and coach at South and Garfield High School. And one of the particular joys of this campaign has been this. As I've gone around the state from Spokane to Bellingham and Vancouver, I meet folks in their 60s and 70s who say, "Hey, was Frank Inslee your dad?" I say, "Yes." "Why?" And they say, "Your dad's teaching and coaching made a big difference in my life." And that is a joy to hear that. And that is why, as a governor, I'm going to bend every effort to give every teacher in this state the training and resources they need to have a teacher as good as my father, himself and God. Now, when I was growing up in White Center, when you pointed almost to every house, there was somebody who would be working at Boeing there. These people were amazing, my heroes then and now. They built the world's first successful commercial jet airliner, the Boeing 707. And I started having an inkling as a young guy what we have special in the state of Washington. And we do have something special in this state. And that is both the power of creativity and the power of honest work to lead the world. Here's what we do in our state. We invent, we create, we build. Innovation is in our genes, and it is our destiny to lead the world in the next sources of technological revolution. I believe that's the destiny of the state. But we have to understand this is a competition. There are leaders in China, in Germany, and all over this country who want to have the same aspirations that we do, and we welcome their competition. But we have to understand that we can never accept the second place finish for the state of Washington, particularly when it comes to clean energy. 4 years ago, I thought this nation needed a vision of how we can create jobs in clean energy, so I wrote this book on it. And I've been dedicating myself helping our state and our country move forward ever since. Let me tell you why I think this is such a bright vision for our state. This idea of clean energy can unite the state of Washington. I'll be the first governor who's lived and resided in Eastern Washington 8 years since Clarence Martin poured concrete for the Grand Coulee Dam. Now I look for a future that unites the farmers of the Eastern Washington with the engineers of West Seattle, where we can have the clean energy of wind power east, power the skyscrapers in the west. This is the united vision for the state of Washington. So the day will come, if we play our cards right, when the world beats a path to our door for our job creation and our business development. Clean energy and that economic opportunity has Washington State written all over it. This clean energy opportunity is not just an opportunity, it is a destiny. Now, if we are going to fulfill this, we have to make sure that the state government of this state becomes a toolbox for entrepreneurs in these high-tech fields, biotechnology, clean energy technologies. And here's what we need to do. We need to make sure that any entrepreneur with a bold new technology, any new inventor with a new insight, any student with a commitment to sharpen their minds so that they can create the next new inventory of new ideas in this state gets exactly what they need, and that's what we will do when I'm governor of the state of Washington. And look, we know what we have to do to make sure we are that toolbox. Trudy and I are married to Husky and Cougar, and we respect both those great colleges. Except on Apricot Day. But anyway, we know that our source of economic development of our colleges. And we know that these are the springboard for commercializing technology. We've had 252 new businesses coming out of the research labs of these colleges just in the last few years. And now I have a plan to make sure that we accelerate the commercialization of the great research from these colleges. So now, I want to ask you to join me in this great endeavor, and it is a great endeavor. And I will tell you this, if you will give me the next 52 days of your energy and talent, I will give you the next 4 years of waking up every single morning, dedicating myself to do everything within my power to get Washington back to work. That's a commitment I want to make to you. My commitment is this. If you give me those 4 years, I will stand up for you as I have for the last decade and a half. I will stand up for a woman's right of choice every day. beneficiary of a brilliant leader for the last 2 decades. A person who has been a pillar of strength and inspiration. Someone who can speak for America with unequaled respect across the world. But Hillary can't be with us today. Respected Secretary of State stand up and he's committed. But we do have a president who in the last week and a half has truly changed and helped America understand the nature of the choice we face. We know his speech convention lit up this country. We know his accomplishments of having led us to a time of prosperity, his realistic, growth-oriented policies. We know he has been an inspiration of all measures of equality and civil rights. But I want to particularly note what this president has done and is doing. I want to thank him for his global leadership on clean energy. His leadership is developing clean energy in India, in Africa, across the world. And when he does this, he helps create jobs right here in the United States, in the state of Washington. Because we understand that any time there's technological growth, we create jobs in our country. And I am proud to have a president who does not mock the challenge of climate change. He has decided to defeat the challenge of climate change. I will just say this and then ask you to welcome him. He is a man from Hope, Arkansas, who is truly giving hope to the world, and I'm so deeply grateful that President Clinton has come to stand up to keep a forward state, the evergreen state, moving forward. President Bill Clinton.
Jack got on that roll at the end of his talk, and he just had one riff right after another, producers were all standing on their feet and applauding. I thought, where's that calm, laid-back guy? You keep doing that, and before you know it, the Republicans will give you some of those blood tests that they give baseball players. I mean, an amazing performance. Thank you, Jay, for inviting me back to Washington, a place that was very good to me and is very close to my heart. I thank Senator Patty Murray and Senator Maria Cantwell for their extraordinary service. I thank Congressman Jim McDermott is here. Thank you for sending Maria Cantwell back to Washington with the kind of victory she deserves. I thank the local officials who are here, King County Executive Constantine, Mayor Strickland, and I want to recognize Susan Delvene and Eric Kilmer who are running for Congress, and I just did a little bit for them. I want to tell you, if you just look at their record, records, what they've done and what they've been recognized for. If you really think the economy is the biggest issue in the country, it's not a close case. There are hardly any candidates anywhere in the United States who have better records and actually doing the kind of creative cooperation it takes to create jobs instead of just bloviating about it. And so I hope you will elect them both to Congress. I think that anybody who's clever enough to name a band Death Cab for Cutie probably do anything he sets his mind to. Jay and I met him backstage and I said, you know, if we didn't any talent, we'd have gone into your line of work. But I also want to thank former Congressman Brian Baird for being here. Thank you very much for the support you gave. Here's what I want to say about this race. Before I became president, I was the longest serving governor in America. Don't let anybody tell you that governors cannot have a big impact on the economy, on the education system, on the preparation of the workforce to do the job of the future. When I had the honor of nominating the president in Charlotte, I said, and I believe, that when he took office, our economy was so deeply wounded, no president, including me and all my predecessors, no president could have fully healed it in just 4 years. But we're not going back to what we had before. We have to go forward and build a new future. And so, if you believe that, it brings some clarity to this choice. Washington State is one of the great trading states in America, one of the great shipping states in America, one of the great exporting states. You're not afraid to acknowledge that we live in an interdependent world where both good and bad forces travel fast across national borders. In that kind of world, based on my experience as a governor, a president, and the work I do now, the strategy that works is one that strives for shared prosperity, shared responsibilities, a shared sense of community, a relentless focus on the future. That works a lot better than anti-government, you're on your own strategy. It's also true that strategy flows from a set of values. A belief that we're all in this together really is better than every person for himself or herself. And it leads you to a focus on the right tactics, which basically is everything that the other party isn't today. And I'm not bashing Republicans. Some of my best supporters are Republicans. I do a lot of work with them. But the faction that controls the Republican Party today has taken them down a road of constant conflict, winner take all. Creative cooperation works better. That's why you're in the shape you're in. So the most important reason to vote for Jay Inslee is that he has proved his effectiveness in Congress. That book he wrote was a great book. I was profoundly honored when he asked me to do the foreword for it. Look, the United States ranks first or second in the world in every single scientific survey in the capacity to generate energy from the sun and the wind. We have massive geothermal capacity. We have massive capacity in other areas that are really good for us, including a lot of natural gas that I think is a good bridge fuel to the future. But in the end, we have to prove that we can create a modern economy, that we fuel ourselves on energy that is not burning up the planet. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry when I heard the Republican nominee mock the rising of the sea. There are Republican governors on the Atlantic coast today. Go initiating plans to rebuild houses along the coast, either to lift them up and strengthen the supports or to move them back, because they will not be able to get insurance for their cities if they do not do so. They are not mocking the rising of the seas. There are countries in the Pacific that believe they will not be in existence in a few years unless we do something about climate change. They are not mocking the rising of the seas. There is country after country in the Caribbean that have been affected in massive ways by the fact that losses from natural disasters, insured losses, have doubled or tripled in each of the last 2 decades over the previous one. They are not laughing at the rising of the seas. July was the hottest month ever recorded. We are now almost 400 months in a row higher than the 500-year historic average. This is no laughing matter. The question is, are we going to do something about it, or are we going to do something to us? Inslee has an economic strategy based on clean energy and other things, biotechnology, modernized, highly competitive agriculture, aerospace, developing the marine capacities, and they all fit together. We work in Los Angeles with my climate change project. We're replacing 140,000 streetlights with LED streetlights. That one thing was like $10 million a year in electric bills and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Of the combined ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which together the second biggest port in the Americas, and they have a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. This is not rocket science, but it is great economics. And I just want to say, if we don't do it, somebody else will. On a stunningly sunny spring day, just a few months ago, in Germany, a country that is 1/3 our population, they generated 22 gigawatts of power from the sun, only the equivalent of 20 nuclear power plants, in a country where the sun shines on average as much as it does in London. Don't tell me this is not a serious option for a serious country. Let's just talk about how the economy really works. If you want to run a successful economy of shared prosperity in a rich country that is open to trade, you must have at least one source of good new jobs every 5 to 8 years. Sometimes my critics say, oh, Bill Clinton didn't balance the budget, the tech boom did. Well, that's true, but it's not the whole truth. The truth is, you cannot balance a budget that is severely in deficit without 3 things. You have to have appropriate spending restraints, an appropriate revenue stream, and you have to have economic growth. And if you take one away, you can't get there. If you look at what the president's done in a time when there was no private growth, so it made the deficit bigger, because interest rates are almost zero, lower than the rate of inflation, he did the right thing with that stimulus bill, and you did the right thing to vote for it. Washington State got billions of dollars in their investments out of it. And when the Republicans refused to support one more year of it, which the Senate and Votes Commission they recommended, when they did that, we lost 700,000 jobs. Teachers, police officers, firefighters, nurses, people that serve the public at the state and local level all across America, because they couldn't borrow the money the way the federal government could. There were weeks when we could borrow $1 billion for a year at a quarter of 1% interest. But in the long run, we have to do something about the debt because interest rates will rise as the economy grows. We have to be ahead of the curve when that happens in doing what we did in the 90s, which included information technology. So I'll tell you what role IT played in the 90s in the growth of America and in helping us to balance the budget and run 4 surplus budgets of the 8 I presented. It was 8% of our employment, more than 20% of our job growth, and about a third of our income growth. We need something like that every 5 to 8 years. So, you got somebody running for governor here who has offered 75 specific ideas to grow the economy, rooted in, first, keep your IT base and build on it, but add to it with clean energy and with biotechnology. I'll just give you one example. The current capital of human genome research in the United States and probably in the world is San Diego. Used to be known as a great Navy town, it still is. They have 700 computer companies now. Why? Because Craig Bennett's foundation, still a lot of the private investment in human genome research is there, because the university supports it, because a Republican mayor and a Democrat who heads the biggest computer company, Qualcomm, all of them work together to try to keep developing new frontiers and new discoveries, creative cooperation. That's what Jay Inslee wants Washington to be in biotechnology, and it is the next great frontier of economic opportunity and prosperity. You got the people to do the job. So cutting education funding, $74 million, is not a very good strategy for educating more people who can take these jobs. That's his position. One thing that is a good strategy is Jay's proposal to make it easier for universities to commercialize their discovery. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but in the last great burst of bipartisanship before President Reagan took office in 1981, in 1980, a bipartisan majority sent to President Carter a bill that said that if a university anywhere in America got federal funds, it could be a public or private university, if they got federal science and technology research funds, and they came up with an idea that had commercial application, they could license it to a private company and keep whatever they earn in the profits as long as they reinvested it in building a modern economy. It's really one of the greatest laws that we passed in the last 50 years. Hardly anybody knows about it because there was no fight over it. You know, in America, we are great at keeping a secret of good news. Now, you're laughing, but this is a huge deal. So, President Obama has really championed it, but a lot of the work has to be done at the state level. Now, lest you doubt this, I'll give you one example. The high-tech corridor in Massachusetts has made a roaring comeback under Governor Patrick, but one of the reasons is that MIT, famous to all of us as a great science and technology university, has the best provision for transferring its technology to new companies, arguably in the whole country, because they will give it to a startup and take not one red cent. They lower the cost of entering any new field, and you just give them a piece of the action. So if your company fails, then you do, they get nothing. If your company succeeds, they get to ride the escalator at the top. It lowers the cost of entry. Those are the kinds of ideas that you'll get if you elect Jay Inslee governor. He knows this is
this isn't about conservative and liberal in any traditional sense. Conservatives used to want to conserve the environment, not deny plain scientific evidence. Conservatives used to want to preserve our natural heritage, not ignore evident risks. Conservatives used to disdain things like new methods of teaching language and new methods of teaching math. Conservatives used to believe in arithmetic. Now, we're all laughing, but it is a metaphor for the stark choices facing America today that we are actually having a presidential election in which the last remaining issue, according to the most recent surveys, in which the president's challenger has the lead, and who is more likely to reduce the deficit? Why? Because the Republicans ran a debt cloud at their convention. Never mind that the debt was quadrupled in the 12 years before I took office and doubled in the 8 years I left. But never mind the fact that nobody could have balanced the budget if the president hadn't done the stimulus. I believe the debt would have been bigger. How do I know that? Look what happened in the United Kingdom. They went for austerity now, and it put them back in recession because their revenues dropped even more than spending could be cut. Because there was no activity. And so we all still have work to do on this. But I'll guarantee you one thing. If you make Jay Inslee your governor, he'll try to do every one of those 75 things on that list he gave you. And you don't know what his opponent's going to do because he says what the national ticket does. See me after the election for the details. But we do know what their position on the budget is in Washington, which will have a huge impact on you, and you need somebody to offset it. They're in a big old debt cloud, right? They told us how terrible it is. They said, we've got a terrible debt. And here's our opening gambit. We're going to make it $5 trillion worse by cutting taxes, $5 trillion more. And then the second thing we're going to do is add $2 trillion more to it by giving the Pentagon more money than they want. And then we'll figure out how to get rid of this debt, which we just made $7 trillion bigger than it was before. We're going to repeal all these tax exemptions. Well, which ones and how much? See me about that after the election. All over America, this anti-government rhetoric is all about seeing about that after the election. All you got to do is to read what he said he's going to do and listen to what he said to know that this man is running democracy the way it should. You don't have to see him about it after the election. He has already told you right now where he stands on the budget, on the I'll tell you what I'd like to see you about after the election. I'd like to see you about the decision that the voters in Washington State made to put this state right at the front of the line in bringing America back into the future business with Jay Inslee as governor. Thank you.